Alexander Reed had always been a busy man. A billionaire by his late 30s, he had everything money could buy. Expensive cars, luxurious houses, and private jets were part of his daily life. Yet nothing filled the emptiness he felt after losing his son. His son had been the light of his life, and the pain of losing him never left Alexander. Despite all his wealth, he often found himself wandering through the quiet halls of his mansion at night, remembering the laughter and small joys he had shared with his boy. On a calm Sunday morning, Alexander decided to visit the family cemetery. The place was quiet, almost peaceful, with the soft rustling of leaves in the wind and birds singing in the background. The sun had just begun to rise, casting a golden glow on the gravestones. As he walked along the familiar path, Alexander felt the weight of grief pressing down on him once again. It had been 2 years since his son passed, but the pain was as sharp as the first day. He reached the grave, the fresh flowers he had placed the week before still standing tall. Alexander knelt, feeling a lump in his throat as he spoke to his son in his mind. He whispered about his day, the business challenges he had faced, and the emptiness that seemed to follow him everywhere. Grief, Alexander realized, never really went away. It just became a quiet companion. As he stood up and wiped a tear from his cheek, something unusual caught his eye. A small figure was crouched by another grave, quietly sobbing. Alexander squinted, surprised. He didn't recognize the girl at first, but as he got closer, he realized it was Lily, the maid's daughter. She was just a young girl, quiet and often invisible in the busy household, always helping behind the scenes without drawing attention. Alexander had seen her before, but she had never been in this part of the cemetery. Lily's face was streaked with tears, and her hands clutched a small bouquet of wildflowers. She seemed lost in her sorrow, unaware of Alexander's presence. Something about her grief was different, deeper, and strangely familiar. Alexander felt a tug at his heart. He had never seen her like this before. The innocence in her eyes, mixed with profound sadness, made him pause. He had always treated her kindly, of course, but never really paid attention to the depth of her emotions. "Lily," Alexander said softly, not wanting to startle her. His voice broke slightly. She looked up, her eyes red and swollen from crying. For a moment she didn't speak. Then, in a small voice, she said, "I come here every week." Alexander was taken aback. "Every week? But why? You didn't know him well." Lily shook her head, clutching the flowers closer. "I knew him enough. He was kind to me once. A long time ago. I wanted to see him again, to tell him I'm sorry." Alexander's brow furrowed. He had never known about this encounter, this connection. His curiosity grew, but he didn't want to pressure her. He understood that grief was personal, and sometimes words weren't enough. He knelt down beside her, offering silent support, letting her know she wasn't alone. For a while, they sat in silence, the wind softly moving through the trees. Alexander watched her, noticing the way she wiped her tears, the small tremble in her hands, and the way she seemed to speak to someone invisible. There was a story here, one he didn't fully understand, but he could feel its weight. Finally, Lily spoke again, her voice trembling. I remember when he smiled at me. It was just once, but it felt like forever. I didn't know it would mean so much. I never thought I'd lose him too." Alexander felt his chest tighten. He wanted to understand, to know what had brought this girl to the cemetery week after week. Her grief was raw, honest, and somehow connected to his own. He realized that maybe his son's kindness had left a mark on her, a mark that stayed even after years had passed. "Lily, do you want to tell me about him?" Alexander asked gently. He wasn't sure what he expected, but he wanted to give her the chance to speak. She nodded slowly, taking a deep breath. He cared about everyone, not just the rich people or the famous people. He cared about people like me, people no one noticed. He once asked me to help him with a small project. Just a little thing, but it felt huge to me. He smiled at me, and I smiled back. I didn't think it mattered, but it did. Alexander listened intently. He had always believed his son had a special heart, but hearing it from someone else, someone outside their family, made it even more real. He felt a mix of pride and sadness, realizing how much his son had touched the lives of others quietly. Lily continued, her voice breaking. I wanted to tell him I was thankful. I wanted to tell him I'm sorry for the things I did wrong, for the times I wasn't brave enough. But he's gone and I can't. Alexander's heart ached. He wanted to console her, to tell her that her feelings mattered, that her presence at the cemetery was a sign of love and respect. But he also knew words were not enough. Grief was not something you could fix. It had to be felt. For a long time, they sat together quietly, sharing the space without speaking. Alexander realized that, in some ways, their grief connected them. Both had lost someone irreplaceable. Both carried memories that could never be erased. And yet, there was a strange comfort in their shared silence, a silent acknowledgement that they were not alone in their sorrow. Eventually, Alexander spoke again, his voice gentle. I don't know everything you feel, Lily, but I do know that your love and care for him. It shows who you are. And he would have been proud of you. Lily looked up, surprised. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. She felt a warmth, a small spark of hope amidst the sadness. She realized that maybe her grief could be a bridge, not just a burden. Maybe through it, she could honor the memory of someone she loved while finding a path forward for herself. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Alexander knew it was time to leave, but he didn't rush. He stood slowly, offering his hand to Lily. She hesitated but took it, feeling a sense of trust she had never felt before. Alexander gave her a reassuring smile, one that carried understanding, compassion, and a silent promise that he would not forget what he had learned today. Walking back to his car, Alexander's mind was full of questions, thoughts, and an unexpected sense of purpose. He had discovered something remarkable in the most ordinary place, a connection that had been invisible to him before. Lily's grief had opened a door to a story he needed to understand, a story that might change both their lives forever. As they parted ways that morning, neither spoke much, but both felt a quiet shift. Alexander knew he would return to the cemetery again, not just for his son, but to understand Lily, to learn why her heart had carried such sorrow, and perhaps, to find a way to honor the bond they now shared. And Lily, for the first time in years, felt a tiny light in her chest, a reminder that even in loss, human connections could bring warmth, hope, and a sense of belonging. Alexander could not stop thinking about Lily after their encounter at the cemetery. Her grief, her words, and the story she hinted at stayed with him. For the first time, he realized there was more to the quiet girl he had always seen around the mansion. She was more than just a helper's daughter. She had depth, emotion, and a secret that connected her in a special way to his late son. He decided to find out more, but he wanted to be careful. Alexander knew he could not push Lily. She had to share her story willingly. He watched her in the household quietly, noticing how she moved with purpose yet avoided attention. She had a gentle presence, the kind that people rarely noticed but who left an impact if observed closely. Every small act of kindness she performed, whether helping a staff member or tidying up unnoticed, spoke volumes about her character. One afternoon, he asked her to meet him in the library, a quiet place where conversations could happen without interruption. Lily looked nervous but curious as she approached him. Alexander smiled warmly, hoping to put her at ease. Lily, he began softly, I want to understand what you told me the other day. You said my son was kind to you once. I need to know about that. Lily fidgeted with her hands. She had never spoken much about her feelings, especially not to someone as powerful as Alexander. But there was something in his tone that made her feel safe, as though he genuinely wanted to listen without judgment. It was a long time ago, she started, her voice shaking slightly. He came to our house one afternoon. My mother was busy with work, and I had finished my chores. He was different from everyone else. He didn't care that I was just a maid's daughter. He treated me like I mattered. Alexander nodded, encouraging her to continue. He asked me to help him with a small project. It was nothing important, just organizing some papers and ideas. But he smiled at me while we worked. It made me feel like I was part of something bigger. For the first time, I felt seen. Alexander's heart ached. He remembered his son's love for people and how he always tried to make a difference in small ways. Hearing it from Lily made it real and tangible. He could picture the scene, the laughter and simple connection that had left a lasting mark on her. But then, Lily paused, looking down. Something happened. I was supposed to do something for him and I failed. I didn't think it mattered, but it did. I think maybe it changed things for him. I never got to say I'm sorry, and I never will. Alexander felt a deep sense of empathy. He wanted to tell her that her guilt was misplaced, that his son's spirit would have understood. But he realized she needed to tell the story in her own time to express her feelings fully. He remained quiet, letting her words fill the room. Lily took a deep breath and continued, explaining how she had watched from a distance as his son continued to help others, while she stayed hidden in her own small world. She spoke about the letters she had written to him in secret, the prayers she whispered at the cemetery, and the small ways she tried to honor his memory. Each word revealed a depth of love and regret that touched Alexander deeply. I never thought anyone would understand, she whispered. I just wanted him to know I cared, that I wasn't just a maid's daughter. I wanted him to remember me as someone who mattered to him, even if only a little. Alexander felt a lump in his throat. He realized that Lily's grief was not only about his son but about her own longing for connection and recognition. She had loved and lost quietly, carrying her emotions alone. He admired her strength and her loyalty. He decided it was time to show her that she mattered. Lily, he said gently, what you feel, what you've done, it matters more than you know. Your care for him, your presence, it's a part of his memory. And it's a part of you that is strong, brave, and kind. Lily looked up, surprised by his words. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. She had spent so long feeling invisible, unnoticed, and yet here was someone, the father of the boy she loved, telling her that her emotions, her grief, and her love were important. Over the next few days, Alexander began observing her more closely, noticing her intelligence, her attention to detail, and the quiet strength she displayed in her daily life. She was capable, resourceful, and compassionate, qualities that were often overlooked because of her humble position. Alexander started to see her not just as the maid's daughter, but as someone with potential, someone whose life could be changed if given the right opportunities. One evening, he approached her with an idea. Lily, I want to help you, he said carefully. I don't know exactly how yet, but I want to make sure your talents, your heart, and your potential aren't wasted. You've shown incredible care and courage. I want you to know that your story doesn't have to end here. Lily was hesitant. She had never received such attention from someone in his position. She was used to being overlooked, to her efforts going unnoticed. But something in Alexander's tone, the sincerity in his eyes, gave her hope. For the first time, she felt that maybe her life could be different, that maybe her grief could lead to something meaningful. As the days turned into weeks, Alexander and Lily spent more time together. He listened to her stories, her thoughts, and her reflections on life. He began to understand her fully, the depth of her feelings, her loyalty, and the ways she had been shaped by her experiences. Lily, in turn, began to trust him, sharing things she had never told anyone else. One afternoon, while walking through the gardens of the mansion, Alexander asked, "Have you ever thought about what you want for your life, Lily?" She hesitated. I don't know. I never thought much about myself. I've always been busy helping others, surviving, doing what's expected. Alexander smiled. But you have a heart, intelligence, and courage that deserve to be nurtured. You shouldn't just survive, Lily. You should thrive. Her eyes widened. No one had ever said something like that to her. She had lived her life in the shadows, always thinking that her place was to serve, not to grow or dream. Alexander's words planted a seed of hope, a possibility that she could aspire to more. Over time, Alexander started providing her with small opportunities. He gave her books, encouraged her to explore her interests, and invited her to participate in discussions that she had never imagined being part of. Lily's confidence grew, and with it, a sense of purpose. She realized that her connection to his son had opened a door she never knew existed. A door to a future where her talents and heart could be recognized and valued. One evening, as they sat in the study, Lily confided, "I never thought anyone would care about what I feel or what I've done. I always thought I was invisible. But now, I feel like maybe I'm seen for the first time." Alexander felt a warmth in his chest. He knew that helping Lily was not just about honoring his son's memory, but about giving her a chance to heal, grow, and be recognized. She had suffered in silence, and now she had someone who believed in her, someone who could guide her without taking away her agency. Their bond strengthened with each passing day, built on trust, empathy, and mutual respect. Alexander discovered that sometimes, the smallest gestures, the quietest acts of kindness, and the hidden stories held the greatest meaning. Lily, in turn, learned that grief could be shared, that love could extend beyond loss, and that her life could be transformed in ways she never imagined. As part 2 of their story unfolded, Alexander realized that the connection between his son and Lily was more significant than he had first thought. It wasn't just about past kindness. It was about shaping a future where love, empathy, and recognition could create change. He knew that the journey was just beginning, but he was committed to walking it with her, discovering the truth behind her tears and the depth of the bond that linked them all. And for Lily, the discovery that she was not alone in her grief, that someone saw her and valued her, became the first step toward hope, healing, and a life filled with possibility. Alexander had been reflecting a lot about Lily. Every time he thought of her, he realized there was more to uncover about her past and her connection to his son. The young girl had touched his heart in a way that made him want to understand everything about her. He decided that to truly help Lily and honor his son's memory, he needed to know the full story. One morning, he invited Lily to walk with him through the old family archives, a room filled with photographs, letters, and documents that recorded the lives of his family. He hoped that by showing her these pieces of history, he might understand her better and perhaps discover clues about her past that she herself had forgotten. As they entered the room, the smell of old paper and polished wood filled the air. Lily looked around in awe, her eyes wide with curiosity. She had never been in this part of the mansion, and seeing the legacy of Alexander's family made her feel small yet significant at the same time. Alexander gently guided her to a section of letters and journals. "These belong to my son," he said softly. "He wrote about many things, some private, some about helping others. Maybe these can help us understand why he had such a connection with you." Lily's hands trembled slightly as she picked up a faded journal. She opened it carefully, as if handling something sacred. Inside, she found entries detailing his thoughts, his dreams, and even small notes about the people he had met. Alexander watched her closely, noticing the way her eyes lit up at certain passages. She read aloud softly, hesitating at first, but soon becoming absorbed in the words. There were notes about small acts of kindness, moments of laughter, and a strong belief in helping those who were often ignored. One particular entry mentioned a kind-hearted young girl who had assisted him with a project. Her eyes widened as she recognized herself in the description, her heart pounding with a mixture of disbelief and emotion. Alexander observed her quietly. He realized that this confirmation was important for Lily. It validated her grief and her devotion, showing her that her connection with his son had truly mattered. Her tears began to flow again, but this time they were different. Tears of recognition, understanding, and perhaps even relief. "I didn't think he remembered me," Lily whispered, her voice trembling. "I thought it was just a moment, nothing important." Alexander placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "He did remember you, Lily. You were important to him more than you realized. You touched his heart, just as he touched yours." Over the next few days, Alexander encouraged Lily to read more of the journals and letters. Each page revealed a side of his son that she had only glimpsed before. She learned about his compassion, his interest in helping those in need, and his constant desire to bring comfort and happiness to people, even in small ways. Every word seemed to strengthen the bond between Lily and the memory of his son one afternoon. While they were looking through an old photo album, Alexander noticed a letter addressed to Lily, written by his son years ago. He handed it to her gently. She unfolded the paper with care, her eyes scanning the familiar handwriting. The letter spoke of appreciation, kindness, and encouragement. It mentioned how much he valued her help and how her presence had brightened his days. Lily's hands shook as she read the words aloud. He really cared, she said softly, almost in disbelief. All this time I thought I was insignificant, but he thought I mattered. Alexander felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He knew that this moment was crucial for Lily. It was a turning point, a moment when she began to understand that her actions, her kindness, and her love had left a lasting impact. For someone who had often felt invisible, this realization was life-changing. Encouraged by this discovery, Alexander decided to take further steps. He wanted to ensure that Lily's potential was nurtured and that her life could take a positive turn. He began to involve her in small decisions around the household, inviting her opinion on charitable activities and even letting her help organize events in memory of his son. Lily's confidence grew with each responsibility, and she began to see herself as someone capable of making a difference. One evening, while they were reviewing a list of charitable projects, Alexander asked, Lily, have you ever thought about what you want to do in life? Not just helping others, but your own dreams. She paused, thinking deeply. I never thought much about myself. I've always been focused on helping, surviving, doing what I could. I didn't think I had a future beyond that. Alexander smiled. But you do. You have talents, compassion, and intelligence that deserve to grow. Your life can be more than survival. It can be about thriving, achieving, and creating. Lily's eyes filled with tears once more. The idea of a future where she could pursue her own dreams, where she could be recognized for her abilities, felt almost unreal. But with Alexander's support, the thought slowly became believable as the weeks passed. Alexander and Lily's bond deepened. They shared conversations about life, values, and the importance of kindness. He discovered that Lily had a remarkable ability to understand people, to notice their needs, and to offer help without seeking recognition. This skill, he realized, was rare and invaluable. He began to think of ways to provide her with education, mentorship, and opportunities to expand her horizons. One day, he presented her with a plan. Lily, I want to help you learn, grow, and explore your potential. I want to make sure you have every chance to succeed, to follow your passions, and to become the person you're meant to be. Will you let me? Lily was overwhelmed. She had never imagined that someone would care so much about her future. I don't know what to say, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. I've never had anyone believe in me like this. Alexander gently replied. Then say yes, and let's take this journey together. Your story doesn't have to be defined by the past. You have the chance to create a future that honors your heart and your connection to my son. With a tentative nod, Lily agreed. It was the beginning of a new chapter in her life. She realized that the grief she carried was not a burden to bear alone, but a bridge to understanding, growth, and new possibilities. Alexander's guidance and belief in her potential gave her the courage to dream, to hope, and to step into a life she had never imagined. Together, they began mapping out steps for her education, experiences, and personal growth. Alexander ensured that each decision respected her individuality while offering opportunities that had previously been out of reach. Lily thrived in this new environment, learning quickly, gaining confidence, and discovering that her voice, her talents, and her heart had value beyond measure. Through this journey, Alexander also reflected on the lessons his son had taught him. Compassion, empathy, and attention to small acts of kindness were more powerful than wealth or status. Seeing Lily's transformation reminded him of his son's spirit, keeping his memory alive in the most meaningful way. As part 3 of their story unfolded, it became clear that Lily's grief had been a doorway to something extraordinary. Alexander realized that sometimes, The people we overlook hold incredible potential, and the bonds formed through love, loss, and shared humanity can change lives forever. Lily, once invisible, now had a future filled with hope, guidance, and the chance to honor the memory of someone who had touched her heart deeply. And Alexander, in turn, found a renewed sense of purpose, understanding that helping her meant keeping a part of his son alive in the world. Alexander watched Lily grow in confidence and skill over the past weeks, and he knew that the time had come to take a more meaningful step in helping her future. It wasn't just about giving her small opportunities or guiding her in the mansion anymore. He wanted to make a real difference in her life, the kind of difference that could change her path forever. One morning, he asked her to meet him in his office. The room was filled with sunlight streaming through the large windows, casting a warm glow on the polished wood furniture. Lily entered cautiously, unsure what to expect, but ready to listen. "Lily," Alexander began, his voice calm but serious. "I have been thinking a lot about your future and the kind of person you are. You've shown courage, kindness, and intelligence beyond your years. I believe it's time for me to do more than just guide you here. I want to help you achieve the life you deserve." Lily looked at him, eyes wide with surprise. She had never imagined someone in his position taking such a personal interest in her life. She nodded slowly, unsure of what to say. "I've arranged for you to have access to education, mentors, and experiences that can help you grow," he continued. "You will have the chance to explore your talents, learn new skills, and find your path. I want to make sure your potential isn't wasted." Tears welled up in Lily's eyes. She had spent her life serving others, thinking she had no value outside of her duties. Now someone was telling her that she mattered, that her dreams could matter too. I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. "I've never had anyone believe in me like this before." Alexander smiled gently. "You don't have to thank me. This is about honoring your heart and the connection you had with my son. He saw something in you, and I want to make sure that is never lost." Over the next few days, Alexander began setting up a plan for Lily. He arranged for her to meet with educators who could help her develop academically, and mentors who could guide her in areas of her interest. He even arranged visits to different organizations and events where she could gain real-world experience. Each step was carefully planned to ensure she would grow while still feeling supported and encouraged. At first, Lily was hesitant. The world outside the mansion had always seemed intimidating, and she wasn't sure if she could handle it. But Alexander reassured her. He told her that every step, no matter how small, was a part of her journey, and that she didn't have to be perfect. She only had to try and be true to herself. As Lily began this new chapter, she discovered talents and strengths she had never recognized in herself. She found that she had a keen mind for problem-solving and a natural ability to connect with people. Each day brought new challenges, but also new accomplishments. She started to see herself not just as a maid's daughter, but as a young woman with potential and purpose. One afternoon, while reviewing a community project she had been helping with, Alexander asked her, "Lily, how does this feel to you? Are you enjoying this?" Lily smiled, a genuine smile that reflected her growing confidence. "I never thought I'd feel like this. I always thought my place was behind the scenes, helping quietly. But now, I feel like I'm part of something bigger, and it feels good." Alexander felt a sense of pride and relief. He realized that helping Lily wasn't just about giving her opportunities. It was about helping her recognize her own worth and the power she had to make a difference. This was something his son had known instinctively, and now Alexander was seeing it unfold in real life. As they worked together, Alexander also noticed changes in Lily's personality. She became more confident in expressing her opinions and making decisions. She learned to trust her instincts and to believe in her abilities. It was a transformation that went beyond education or training. It was a change in her very sense of self. One evening, as they sat together in the study, Alexander shared a thought with her. "Lily, sometimes life gives us chances we never expected. It's up to us to take them, to grow, and to honor the people who have shaped our journey. Your courage, kindness, and intelligence have brought you here. Now it's time to take the next steps. Lily listened carefully, feeling the weight and truth of his words. She realized that this journey was about more than just opportunities. It was about embracing her potential and honoring the memory of someone who had believed in her from the start. Over the following months, Alexander and Lily worked closely together. He introduced her to people who could teach her new skills, gave her access to books and resources, and encouraged her to take on projects that challenged her. Each success, no matter how small, built her confidence and strengthened her sense of purpose. Through this journey, Lily began to see a future she had never imagined. She realized that her past, her grief, and her experiences had shaped her into someone capable of achieving great things. With Alexander's support, she could honor her connection to his son while creating a life filled with opportunity, growth, and meaning. One day, Alexander asked Lily to join him in reviewing a charity initiative his son had once started. She worked diligently, offering ideas and suggestions that impressed even the experienced staff. Alexander watched her, proud and amazed at how much she had grown. He realized that this was more than just mentorship. It was a transformation, a way of giving Lily the life she deserved. As part 4 of their story unfolded, it became clear that Lily was no longer just the quiet maid's daughter. She had become a young woman with confidence, purpose, and a vision for her future. Alexander knew that the journey was far from over, but he also knew that the foundation they had built together would support her for the rest of her life. Her grief had become a bridge, her potential a flame, and their shared journey a story of hope, growth, and transformation that would honor the memory of his son in ways he had never imagined. Alexander had watched Lily grow over the past months, and he knew the time had come to reveal something extraordinary. Their journey had been one of trust, understanding, and transformation. Lily had blossomed from a quiet, overlooked girl into a confident, capable young woman. She had discovered her own strength, and Alexander had guided her along the way. But there was one revelation he had kept for the right moment, something that would change everything. One sunny afternoon, Alexander asked Lily to join him in the family archives. The room smelled of old books and polished wood, the air thick with history and memories. Lily felt a sense of anticipation and curiosity as she followed him in. She had been here before, reading letters and journals, but today felt different. "Lily," Alexander began gently, "there's something I need to show you. Something important about your past and your connection to my son." Lily's heart raced. She had felt connected to his son through memories and grief, but she never imagined there could be more. Alexander opened a drawer carefully and pulled out a bundle of old documents tied with a ribbon. He handed them to Lily. "These records. I discovered something about our family that I think you should see." Lily's hands trembled as she untied the ribbon and unfolded the documents. Her eyes widened in shock as she read the contents. Alexander watched her carefully, giving her space to process the information. Slowly, she looked up at him, her voice barely a whisper. This says I'm part of your family?" Alexander nodded. "Yes, Lily. You are related to us. Distantly at first, but still connected by blood. Your presence in our lives, your connection to my son. It's more than chance. You are part of this family in ways we never realized." Lily felt a mixture of emotions: shock, disbelief, joy, and a sense of belonging she had never known. Tears streamed down her face as she struggled to comprehend the revelation. For the first time in her life, she felt truly seen, truly valued, and deeply connected to something greater than herself. This changes everything," she whispered. I never imagined something like this." Alexander smiled warmly. "It doesn't change who you are at your core, Lily. You are still the same brave, kind, and intelligent girl I've come to know. But now you know that you belong. You are family, and your connection to my son is even deeper than we thought." Over the next few days, Lily began to process the revelation. She spoke with Alexander often, asking questions about the family history, about her ancestors, and about the life she might have led under different circumstances. Alexander answered patiently, sharing stories, memories, and insights that helped her understand her place in the family. Lily felt a growing sense of pride, not in wealth or status, but in the knowledge that her life had meaning and connection beyond what she had ever imagined. With this newfound understanding, Lily approached life with even more determination. She continued her studies, participated in charitable projects, and began to envision a future where she could contribute meaningfully to the world. Alexander supported her every step of the way, offering guidance, resources, and encouragement. Their bond grew stronger, built on trust, respect, and shared history. One afternoon, as they walked through the gardens of the mansion, Alexander spoke about his son. He always believed in seeing the good in people, in helping others quietly but meaningfully. That's why he noticed you, Lily, and that's why I want to help you, to honor his memory and ensure his kindness continues through your life. Lily smiled, feeling the warmth of his words. I will do my best to make him proud, she said softly, and to honor the connection we share. Alexander nodded, feeling a sense of fulfillment. He realized that helping Lily was more than an act of kindness. It was a continuation of his son's legacy, a way to keep the memory of love, compassion, and empathy alive. Lily's transformation became a testament to the power of human connection, the impact of care and belief, and the importance of seeing the potential in others. Months passed, and Lily thrived. She embraced her education with enthusiasm, worked on projects that mattered to her, and began to envision a future filled with possibilities. Alexander watched with pride as she navigated challenges, made thoughtful decisions, and grew into a remarkable young woman. The household staff, once surprised by her presence, now recognized her as someone extraordinary, someone who carried herself with dignity, intelligence, and heart. One evening, as they prepared for a charity event in memory of his son, Alexander turned to Lily and said, "You've come so far, Lily, from the girl I found at the cemetery to the person you are today. It's incredible. Your journey has been remarkable." Lily blushed, feeling a mix of pride and humility. "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied. "You believed in me when no one else did, and that made all the difference." Alexander smiled. "It was never just about me. It was about you finding your strength, your purpose, and your place in the world. And now you know that you belong, in every sense of the word." The charity event was a success. Lily took part in organizing it, speaking with confidence, and engaging with guests and participants. She shared stories of kindness, resilience, and hope, inspiring everyone around her. Alexander watched, proud of the young woman she had become. Her growth was more than personal. It was a reflection of the love and legacy of his son. As the night drew to a close, Alexander and Lily stood together, looking at the stars above. Lily felt a sense of peace and fulfillment she had never known. The grief that had once consumed her had transformed into strength, purpose, and hope. She realized that her journey, filled with challenges and revelations, had led her to a place where she belonged, where she could thrive, and where she could honor those she loved. Alexander placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Lily, your story is just beginning. You've discovered your worth, your strength, and your connection to those who love you. The future is yours to shape, and I know you will make it extraordinary." Lily nodded, feeling a warmth in her heart. She had found her place, her family, and her purpose. She had transformed from a quiet, grieving girl into a confident young woman ready to embrace life, guided by love, support, and the memory of someone who had believed in her from the start. In the quiet moments after the event, Lily reflected on her journey. She thought about the boy she had mourned, the man who had believed in her, and the family she had discovered. She understood that life was unpredictable, filled with grief and joy, loss and discovery. But through it all, human connections, kindness, and belief in one another could create change, heal hearts, and open doors to new possibilities. Alexander, watching her from across the room, felt a deep sense of satisfaction. He had helped Lily find herself, honor his son's memory, and embrace a future full of potential. He realized that sometimes the most extraordinary journeys begin in the quietest, most unexpected places. And through their shared journey, both Alexander and Lily had discovered the power of love, hope, and family, forever changed by the bond that had brought them together.